The Audi Q5 has had a midlife update and it looks good, especially in this district green with tan brown interior. But unfortunately, this has led my kids to label it the poop car. So what's new about the poop car? I mean, Q5. Well, it's got attractive new LED headlights similar to those found in the A5 sedan and a new front grille design. And at the back there's some redesigned tail lights joined together now by a black detail strip. All up, there's really no mistaking this car for anything other than an Audi. Well, except maybe for a Volkswagen. Same thing. This particular model of the Q5 is a 45 TFSI, meaning it comes with a turbocharged 4-cylinder 2-litre engine with a mild hybrid that gets you to 100 kilometres per hour in 6.3 seconds. Power output is 183 kilowatts with 370 newton meters of torque. Fuel economy is an average 8 litres per 100 kilometres. And if you think that this engine bay could hold a bigger engine, well, you're dead right. The 50 TFSI model comes with a 3-litre 6. The powered tailgate hides a 550-litre boot which can be tripled in size with the rear seats down. For reasons best known only to Mr. and Mrs. Audi, they've opted to keep the updated Q5 interior much the same as it was before, rather than going for the sleek updated design that we've seen in the latest versions of the Q3 and the Q7. And as such, it is looking just a little bit dated now, but there have been a few important changes. The centre console screen now runs the latest version of Audi's MMI software, which is fantastic. It really is one of the best on the market. It's razor sharp and it works really well with those beautiful Google Maps for the navigation. It has wireless Apple CarPlay, but unfortunately Android users will still need to plug in with a USB. Rather than using a touch screen for climate control like the latest Q7, the Q5 uses a slightly more older school system that looks a bit like a 1990s hi-fi, especially with these buttons along the bottom here that look a bit like radio station presets. But there's 3-zone climate control in this car, and the backseat passengers can also control their own temperature separately from the controls at the back of the centre console here. Moving down, and there's a little tray here for your phone, which is really not big enough for your phone unless you have a phone from the early 2000s. The USB just next to that, a 12-volt outlet, the all-important stop-start button for the engine. In what is probably the biggest change to the Q5's interior, Audi have done away with the touchpad and rotary dial that used to be up here in front of the gear shifter to control the centre console screen. Now all inputs are done via the touch screen, and they've replaced it with a small tray here where you can put your phone. Underneath that, we've got a very nice Audi gear shifter, feeling rock solid, has a great feel to it. Moving back here to the centre console bin, which is, to be honest, not very big. There is wireless charging here on a movable platform which reveals 2 cup holders. Honestly, there is just not much storage space in here. I don't know whether Audi is trying to subtly tell us to not keep crap in our cars, but there's just not much room to put anything, and this is something that BMW just do much better. The materials in the cabin certainly feel very premium. We've got some nice soft touch material up the top here, a nice textured metal sort of plastic down here as we approach the waistline, and that continues down here to the center console too. Of course, Nappa leather in the seats. It is probably actually about the best Nappa leather I've felt in an Audi lately, and these seats are very comfortable. They're heated, there's full electric adjustment of course, as you'd expect with lumbar support, very important for me. The seating position is pretty good. I've got great visibility out the front, not bad out the sides, but there are some high sills, so it does make blind spot detection just a little bit tricky, but there are blind spot lights in both of the rear vision mirrors, and they're huge and you can't miss them when they light up. Visibility through the rear vision mirror through the back window is not great just because we sit up so high and the window is comparatively small, but the reversing camera is razor sharp. Head-up display on the windscreen giving you your speed and navigation directions, and then we've got the 12.1-inch virtual cockpit screen in front of the driver, which is a favourite of mine. Audi are the best at this. It really is fantastic seeing the full screen maps up there. There's a few different variations of your speedo and your odometer. You can play around with those, and a few other bits of information you can cycle through up there. The steering wheel is unfortunately not flat bottomed. I really do like Audi's flat bottom steering wheels, but this isn't an S-Line model, so we've just got a normal round one here. Feels a little bit thicker than some of the other Audi steering wheels I've had lately, but it's got a really good feel to it, not too small either. Couple of paddle shifters here if you want to change the 7-speed gearbox by yourself. Then of course there's my least favourite stalk, the cruise control that we've seen in all Audis, which I'm getting used to, if I'm honest. It's just a little bit overly fiddly and it's in a weird spot. I just don't love the design of it. The back seat of the Q5, and you really do have to move your headrest as soon as you get in because otherwise it digs into your back. But that's really easy to do. I'm 190 centimetres tall behind my own seating position, and look, it's a little bit tight. It's not as big as a Q7, but then I didn't expect that it would be. There's a plastic shell here which has some indentations for your knees, so whilst my knees are touching, it's not too bad. You know, I wouldn't want to do a long road trip in the back, but for a short trip across town, it's fine. Plenty of footroom though. There is a very high transmission tunnel here in the back, which is interesting to see because in the Kia Sorento I reviewed, which is also all-wheel drive, the backseat floor is very nearly flat, whereas this one's really high. So I'm just wondering how they engineer their all-wheel drive systems differently, where Audi needs a high one and Kia doesn't. Interesting. That beautiful panoramic sunroof is just great to look out of, but it does sort of chip into headroom a little bit with my head just touching the ceiling. It's not too bad though. Climate controls back here with the 3-zone climate control. Backseat passengers can control their temperature with the plus and minus buttons. A couple of air vents, of course. We've got 2 USB chargers and a 12-volt outlet. Armrest with a nice mechanical cup holder there. And a nice deep storage bin with room for a water bottle down the bottom. So all up, yeah, it's pretty good. It's on suburban streets where the Audi Q5 really does do its best work. It is a supremely comfortable premium family cruiser. With slightly overactive presense, thinking that I'm about to have a rear-end collision when there is actually nothing in front of me. Sometimes this system does seem to get a little bit confused by parked cars, especially on corners. It thinks that going around a bend, a parked car on the side of the road might be a car that you're about to hit when you're really nowhere near it. So it's maybe just a little bit overly sensitive. The suspension's actually quite soft. It's a very smooth ride, and this is not a particularly smooth stretch of road I'm on at the moment, but we're just gliding along it very smoothly. It's really comfortable. But if I had one criticism, it is of the steering, which is just a bit lifeless and a bit numb. There's not a lot of feel. It certainly feels a bit heavier in dynamic mode than it does in comfort, but both of them are just a bit numb. There's really very little feedback from the road at all with the steering, and I'd like a little bit more road feel with it because this is just a bit vague. It is so quiet in here. I'm actually noticing that I can actually speak really quietly, especially if I'm on the phone. Just out of habit, I tend to shout at the phone when I'm on hands-free in the car. But here, you feel like if you shout, you're making other people uncomfortable. I mean, there are no other people in this car. I'm here on my own, but it's such a quiet cabin. The thing I really like about the 45 TFSI engine in this Q5 is that it's so versatile because it is a supremely comfortable family cruiser. It's great around the city doing the drop-offs for the kids at school and then running around town doing errands. But then when you need to put your foot down, there's still plenty of power there. That 370 Newton meters of torque can still give you a little bit of a kick in the guts when you put your foot down, and I really like that. One thing that a particularly outdoorsy friend of mine always comments on whenever I do an SUV review is that you never mention the brake towing capacity. It's because I generally don't tow, so I don't really think about it. Well, I can tell you right now, it's 2 tons. Yeah, I think this 45 TFSI engine really is the pick of the bunch because going up these twisty turns up this hill here, it just does it so easily with no strain. But the Q5 does feel its size. You know how sometimes you can get into a smaller SUV and it kind of feels like a big car, or if you drive a really big SUV, it performs like a small car? The Q5 feels like exactly what it is, which is a mid-size SUV, although I think technically they call it a compact. Starting at $76,600 and as spec'd here just over $89,000, the Audi Q5 is undoubtedly a fantastic premium refined family cruiser. It's Audi's best-selling car and it's not hard to see why. It's a really great car. But for about $12,000 less, you can get a 7-seater Kia with a 7-year warranty and a very similar spec sheet. So you just have to ask yourself, is a German badge really worth it? Well, if it makes you happy, then it's totally worth it. But if you want to make your accountant happy, maybe you should check out a Kia or a Hyundai.